The Galactic Academy's pristine halls had never witnessed such an audacious display of, well, let's call it, confidence. Commander Vex 9 stood before the assembled cadets, his four purple eyes scanning the crowd with the kind of disdain reserved for particularly stubborn stains on one's favorite uniform. "Earth," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 conquered worlds and possibly a mild case of indigestion, "is where promising military careers go to die." Spectacularly. A ripple of nervous laughter swept through the crowd, the kind of laughter that says, "Ha ha, surely he's joking," while simultaneously checking the nearest exit routes. Commander Vex 9 wasn't joking. He never joked. His species, the Korthak, had their humor glands surgically removed at birth. It was considered a mercy. In the past 5 cycles, he continued, his mandibles clicking with each syllable like an insectoid typewriter from hell, "we have sent exactly 47 cadets to Earth for basic survival training. Care to guess how many returned with their sanity intact?" Silence. The kind of silence that screams louder than a black hole's dinner bell. "Zero," Vex 9 said, savoring the word like fine wine. "Not one. The humans have somehow managed to break every single cadet we've sent. Mentally, physically. Some came back speaking in something they called memes and refused to communicate in any other format." In the back row, a small figure shifted slightly. Zara Voss, human exchange student, and apparently the only being in the galaxy with a functioning sense of humor about her own species' reputation. Her green eyes sparkled with mischief as she raised her hand. "Commander?" Vex 9's compound eyes swiveled toward her, like targeting systems on a particularly aggressive battleship. "Yes, Cadet Voss? If no cadet can survive Earth," she said, her voice carrying just enough innocence to be dangerous, "then how exactly am I standing here?" The silence that followed could have been weaponized. Somewhere in the distance, a ventilation system wheezed like it was trying not to laugh. Commander Vex 9's mandibles twitched. This was either the beginning of a seizure or his species' equivalent of being absolutely flummoxed. "You? What?" "I'm from Earth, sir," Zara continued, her smile growing wider with each passing second. "Born and raised in what you probably have filed under Death World classification, extreme. I've been surviving it for 19 years. Does that make me some kind of statistical anomaly? Or are your cadets just, well, let's say, differently prepared?" A Zephyrian cadet in the third row made a sound that could charitably be described as a suppressed snort. His crystalline features betrayed what might have been amusement if his people weren't constantly trying to appear dignified. Commander Vex 9 was now experiencing what humans would recognize as the classic system error face. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, creating a light show that was both mesmerizing and slightly disturbing. "That island different," he managed finally. "Oh, it gets better," Zara said, standing up fully now. At 5'6", she wasn't particularly imposing by human standards, but surrounded by aliens who considered a light breeze to be potentially lethal, she might as well have been a walking natural disaster. "See, I've been reading your reports about Earth training missions." She pulled out a datapad, the gesture causing several nearby cadets to instinctively lean away. Apparently, even handling technology confidently was considered suspicious behavior. "According to this," Zara continued, "Cadet Blip 7 suffered a complete psychological breakdown after encountering what you've classified as hostile indigenous fauna. Want to guess what it was?" Commander Vex 9 remained silent, possibly because his vocal cords had gone on strike. "A golden retriever named Murphy," Zara announced. "A dog. A very friendly dog who wanted to play fetch." The Zephyrian cadet was no longer bothering to hide his amusement. His crystalline form was literally glittering with suppressed laughter. "And here," Zara continued, clearly on a roll now, Cadet Threen Prime reported atmospheric toxicity levels approaching fatal after spending 20 minutes in what humans call a light spring rain. Rain, she emphasized, is just water falling from the sky. We actually consider it pleasant. Some of us even dance in it. By now, half the assembly was trying not to laugh, and the other half was taking frantic notes, apparently convinced they were witnessing either a master class in psychological warfare or the prelude to a complete mental breakdown. Commander Vex 9 had recovered enough of his composure to look deeply offended. Cadet Voss, Earth's environmental hazards are well documented. The atmospheric pressure alone is exactly what I've been breathing my entire life, Zara interrupted cheerfully, along with the toxic oxygen mix, the lethal solar radiation, and the catastrophic gravitational stress that your reports keep mentioning. She gestured to herself with both hands. Yet here I am, unbroken, unscarred. Actually, I'm in better shape than most of my classmates here. No offense. A Velconian cadet with 6 arms made what sounded like a wheeze of agreement. His species required special life support just to attend classes on the Academy's mild environmental setting. Furthermore, Zara continued, now clearly enjoying herself, I'd like to point out that your previous cadets might have had better luck if they'd done what humans call basic research before landing. She tapped her datapad again. Cadet Urix 1-2 apparently suffered severe psychological trauma from encountering what your report describes as apex predators, displaying pack-hunting behavior and terrifying vocalizations. The pause was perfectly timed for maximum dramatic effect. Those were wolves howling at the rever. Moon, Zara explained. They weren't hunting anything. They were literally just singing. It's like alien karaoke night. At this point, the Zephyrian cadet lost the battle with his composure entirely and made us sound like wind chimes having a very good time. Commander Vex 9's mandibles were now clicking so rapidly they sounded like a particularly aggressive percussion instrument. The wolves, he said slowly, were singing? Oh yes. Zara nodded seriously. Wolves are actually quite social. They have complex family structures. They mourn their dead. And yes, they sing together. It's beautiful, really. Though I suppose if you'd never heard it before, and nobody told you what it was. She shrugged eloquently. Well, I can see how that might be startling. Startling, Commander Vex 9 repeated flatly. Like if I landed on your homeworld and heard your mating calls for the first time? Zara continued helpfully. I'd probably assume something was dying horribly instead of, well, whatever it is your species does for romance. The silence that followed this observation was the kind that archaeologists would probably find preserved in ice somewhere, thousands of years later, still perfectly intact and somehow radiating embarrassment. A small voice from the middle of the assembly piped up. What do human mating calls sound like? Commander Vex 9 turned his full attention to the speaker, a young Aquarian whose gill slits were fluttering with curiosity. The look he gave could have flash-frozen a small moon. We call it music, Zara said, before Vex 9 could respond. Sometimes we even coordinate it with synchronized movement. We call that dancing. Dancing, the Aquarian repeated wonderingly. It's actually quite pleasant, Zara assured her. Much more melodic than wolf songs, though arguably less honest about intentions. Commander Vex 9 was now experiencing what humans would recognize as the early stages of a migraine, though his species called it aggressive neural reorganization syndrome. Cadet Voss, he said, through gritted mandibles. Are you suggesting that our training protocols are inadequate? Oh, not inadequate, Zara said quickly. Just culturally uninformed? She gestured to her datapad again. For instance, Cadet Morp 1-5 reported hostile territorial behavior from indigenous bipeds after landing near a human settlement. And he landed in someone's backyard during a barbecue, Zara explained. The hostile territorial behavior was probably my Uncle Jake asking if he wanted a hamburger. A hamburger? Food, Zara clarified. We have this strange custom where we offer sustenance to visitors. I know. Crazy, right? Most species would just blast first and ask questions later. The assembly was now divided between those trying very hard not to laugh and those frantically taking notes on what was apparently a master class in surviving first. Contact with humans. Your Uncle Jake, Commander Vex 9 said slowly, offered food to an unknown alien entity? Probably called him Buddy, too, Zara mused. Uncle Jake's friendly like that, though he might have been concerned about the whole mysterious spacecraft in his petunias situation. Petunias? Flowers, Zara explained patiently. Pretty ones. Uncle Jake's very proud of his garden. He probably spent more time worrying about his plants than he did about the alien visitor. Commander Vex 9 sat down heavily in his chair, which creaked ominously under his exoskeleton. Let me understand this correctly. Your species' response to alien contact is to offer food and worry about flowers? Well, that and take pictures, Zara added helpfully. We're big on documentation. Cadet Morp 15 is probably in about 17 different family photo albums by now. Photo albums? Visual records of memorable events, she explained. Usually stored with what we call embarrassing captions for future entertainment purposes. At this point, Commander Vex 9 looked like he was seriously considering early retirement, possibly to a nice, quiet monastery on a planet where the most dangerous life form was lichen. Cadet Voss, he said finally, his voice carrying the tone of someone who had just realized their entire worldview needed significant updating. Are you volunteering for Earth survival training? Zara's grin could have powered a small space station. Sir, I'd like to formally volunteer to guide the next training mission to Earth. Guide? As in, teach your cadets how to actually survive instead of just existing in a state of poorly managed terror? She stood up straighter, her expression becoming more serious. Look, Commander, Earth isn't trying to kill your cadets. They're just not prepared for what they're walking into. It's like, imagine if I showed up on your homeworld with no idea about your customs, your environment, or your local wildlife. You would adapt, Vex 9 said automatically. Would I? Zara raised an eyebrow. What if I didn't know that your people communicate through biochemical signals? What if I thought those pheromone clouds were poison gas? What if I panicked every time someone tried to talk to me? The silence stretched out like taffy in a gravitational field. Your cadets aren't failing because they're weak, Zara continued. They're failing because they're going in blind. And frankly, that's not fair to them or to the humans they're encountering. Commander Vex 9's mandibles had stopped their frantic clicking. You believe you could train our cadets to succeed where others have failed? I know I can, Zara said confidently. Because I understand both sides. I know what scares your people about Earth, and I know how humans actually behave when they encounter something new. She paused for dramatic effect. Plus, I can teach them the really important stuff. Such as how to tell the difference between a threat display and a greeting, how to recognize when a human is being friendly versus when they're actually dangerous, the proper way to respond to an offer of food, she grinned, and most importantly, how to avoid landing in Uncle Jake's petunias. To where? The assembly was now hanging on every word. Even Commander Vex 9 seemed genuinely interested, despite his obvious discomfort with the entire situation. Very well, Cadet Voss, he said finally. You will accompany the next Earth training mission as a cultural liaison. Excellent, Zara said, then paused. Oh, and Commander? You might want to update those classification files. Why? Earth isn't a death world, she said simply. It's just misunderstood. As the assembly began to disperse, conversations breaking out in dozens of languages about the strange human and her even stranger planet, Zara gathered her belongings with satisfaction. This was going to be fun. 3 weeks later, Zara stood in the shuttle bay, watching her assigned team of volunteers file aboard the transport vessel. The word volunteers needed quotation marks because half of them looked like they were attending their own funeral, and the other half appeared to be calculating the statistical probability of survival with the enthusiasm of someone doing tax returns. Cadet Voss. Commander Vex 9 approached, his 4 eyes displaying what she'd learned to recognize as deeply suppressed panic. Final briefing. Shoot, Zara said, then noticed several cadets flinch. Sorry. Human expression. It means, go ahead. The mission parameters remain unchanged, Vex 9 continued, pretending he hadn't just watched half his cadets dive for cover. 7 days on Earth's surface. Survival, reconnaissance, and cultural observation. And the real objective? Zara asked sweetly. Vex 9's mandibles clicked once. Sharp? Prove that proper training can overcome Earth's challenges. Right. Zara shouldered her pack, which was notably smaller than everyone else's. While her teammates carried enough equipment to establish a small colony, she'd packed like someone going on a weekend camping trip. Well, team? Ready to not die horribly? The Velconian cadet, Jix Prime, made a sound like air escaping from a deflating balloon. His 6 arms were wrapped around what appeared to be a portable atmospheric processor. Question, piped up Nira, the young Aquarian, whose gill slits had been fluttering non-stop since boarding. When you say, not die horribly, are you being sarcastic or reassuring? Yes, Zara replied cheerfully, which somehow managed to be both. The final team member, a towering Xerion named Kale 99, hadn't spoken since the briefing 3 days ago. His species communicated primarily through electromagnetic pulses, which meant he was either deep in thought or broadcasting the equivalent of panicked screaming on frequencies only electronic devices could hear. Zara's datapad kept glitching whenever he got nervous. All right, everyone, she announced as the shuttle sealed and began its descent toward Earth's atmosphere. Pop quiz time. Collective groaning filled the cabin. Apparently, the universal constant of students hating surprise tests transcended species barriers. If a human approaches you with their arms extended and their mouth displaying dental structures, what's happening? Jix Prime's atmospheric processor wheezed as he hyperventilated. Aggressive threat display. Preparing to bite. Nope. Try again. Territorial challenge? Offered Nira, her gill slits snapping shut with anxiety. Getting warmer, but still wrong. Zara grinned. Anyone else? Kale 99's electromagnetic field flickered in what she'd learned meant uncertainty. Her datapad screen showed a cascade of error messages. It's a hug, Zara explained patiently. Humans express affection through physical contact. The dental display is called a smile. It means they're happy to see you. That's disturbing, Jix Prime wheezed. Wait until you meet my little sister, Zara said. She hugs everything. Trees, dogs, strangers, lamp posts. Last week, I caught her trying to hug a mailbox because it looked lonely. The shuttle broke through Earth's cloud layer, revealing the patchwork landscape below. What the Academy's files described as scarred terrain, showing evidence of massive geological upheaval, was actually Iowa. During corn season, the neat rows of crops stretched to the horizon like a green ocean. It's pretty, Nira said, sounding surprised. Yeah, Earth's not bad once you get used to the whole everything trying to kill you reputation, Zara agreed. Though, fair warning, we're landing near my hometown. Population. About 3,000 humans, twice as many cows, and one very energetic golden retriever named Buster. The same species that traumatized Cadet Blip 7? Jix Prime's voice climbed several octaves. Probably Buster's cousin, Zara mused. Murphy moved to the next town over after the incident. Apparently, Having an alien visitor gave him celebrity status. He's got his own social media account now. The shuttle touched down in what Earth databases would list as Miller's Field. But Academy files had designated Landing Zone Omega, Moderate Threat Assessment. It was a perfectly ordinary meadow, surrounded by perfectly ordinary trees, under a perfectly ordinary blue sky. The hatch opened with a hiss, and Earth's atmosphere rushed in. While her teammates frantically checked their environmental suits, Zara stepped outside and took a deep breath. Nothing like home air, she said, stretching luxuriously. Smells like grass, wildflowers, and Mrs. Henderson's apple pie. She must be baking. Her teammates emerged cautiously, moving like they expected something to leap out of the trees at any moment. Which, knowing Earth, wasn't entirely unreasonable, but the most dangerous thing in the immediate area was probably a confused squirrel. Atmospheric composition confirmed non-toxic, Jix Prime reported, his scanner beeping cheerfully. Oxygen levels within acceptable parameters. No immediate threats detected. How disappointing, Zara said dryly. I was hoping to start you off with something exciting, like a butterfly. Butterflies are venomous? Neera asked, her gills snapping open in alarm. No, they're just pretty insects that flutter around flowers. But Cadet Zune 8 apparently had what your reports call a severe panic episode when one landed on his helmet. Kale 99's electromagnetic field pulsed with what she was learning to interpret as exasperation. Her datapad translated, "How did your species survive long enough to develop technology?" "Stubbornness, mostly," Zara replied. "Plus an alarming tendency to befriend things that should probably eat us." They'd been walking for about 10 minutes when the first threat appeared. A small brown and white dog came bounding across the field, tongue lolling, tail wagging with the enthusiasm of a flag in a hurricane. "Hostile contact!" Jix Prime shrieked, all 6 arms flailing, as he tried to activate his defensive systems simultaneously. "Repeat! Hostile contact!" "That's Buster." The golden retriever mix skidded to a stop in front of them, executing a perfect playbow before beginning what could only be described as a full-body wiggle of joy. His tail wagged so hard his entire back end was shaking. He's displaying aggressive posture," Neera whispered, backing away. "He's asking you to play," Zara corrected. "Watch." She knelt down and scratched behind Buster's ears. The dog immediately rolled over, exposing his belly in the universal canine gesture of trust and submission. "Apex predator," she announced solemnly, completely neutralized by ear scratches. Kale 99's electromagnetic field flickered with what she'd learned meant amusement. Even Neera's gill slits had relaxed slightly. Can I try?" the Aquarian asked hesitantly. Reached out with one webbed hand and gently touched Buster's fur. The dog's tail went into overdrive, and he made soft, huffing sounds of contentment. "He likes me," Neera said wonderingly. "Dogs like everyone," Zara explained. "It's their thing, unconditional friendliness toward anything that might give them food or attention." "That's a terrible survival strategy," Jix Prime observed, though he'd stopped pointing weapons at the dog. "And yet they've been humanity's best friends for thousands of years," Zara pointed out. "Maybe survival isn't just about being the toughest. Maybe it's about being adaptable, social, and good at making allies." They continued toward town, Buster trotting alongside like an impromptu guide. The next threat was Mrs. Patterson's flower garden, which Academy files had noted as possible defensive camouflage for unknown hostile entities. "Those are roses," Zara said, as Jix Prime aimed his scanner at the perfectly innocent flowers. "Humans cultivate them for aesthetic pleasure. They smell nice." "The thorns are clearly defensive structures," Jix Prime insisted. "Yeah, plants don't like being eaten any more than animals do," Zara agreed. "But humans grow them anyway because we think they're beautiful." Beauty trumps practicality about 70% of the time in human decision-making. That's illogical, Neera observed. Welcome to humanity, Zara grinned. We're the species that kept wolves as pets, turned poison into medicine, and somehow convinced ourselves that jumping out of perfectly good aircraft for fun was a reasonable recreational activity. They were approaching the town proper when the real test began. A small crowd had gathered in the town square, apparently having been alerted to their arrival by what humans call the Small Town Information Network, and everyone else calls Mrs. Peterson saw something weird and called everyone she knows. Incoming humans, Zara announced. Remember the briefing. Raised hands. Mean greeting, not aggression. Smiles are good, and whatever happens, do not run. That just makes them curious. Her mother appeared first, because of course she did. Zara Voss was 5'4", wielded a mean casserole recipe, and had never met a stray anything she wouldn't try to feed. Zara, honey, she called, arms already extended for a hug. And you brought friends. Mom, these are my academy classmates, Zara said, accepting the inevitable maternal embrace. Everyone, this is my mother. She's completely harmless, unless you're not eating enough. Zara Voss turned her attention to the aliens with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for discovering puppies in a box. Oh my goodness, aren't you all just fascinating? Are you hungry? I bet you're hungry. Space travel must work up an appetite. Jix Prime made a sound like a deflating balloon. All 6 arms were trembling. She's offering food, Zara translated. Standard human greeting protocol for visitors. It's considered polite to accept. Your mother wishes to feed us? Neera asked, gill slits fluttering with confusion. She wishes to feed everyone, Zara corrected. Last month she tried to pack a lunch for the mail carrier. The month before that, she made extra dinner because she was worried the neighbor's cat looked thin. More humans were approaching now, drawn by curiosity and the promise of meeting actual aliens. Old Mr. Jenkins shuffled over, his cane tapping on the sidewalk. The Peterson twins, age 8 and 11, bounded up with the fearlessness that only children possess. Mrs. Chen from the bakery appeared carrying a plate of cookies, because apparently the universal human response to unusual events was to bring snacks. Holy cow, said Tommy Peterson, the younger twin, staring up at Kale 99's towering form with absolute delight. You're huge. Are you a robot? Kale 9's electromagnetic field pulsed with confusion. Zara's datapad translated, small human offspring displaying no fear response. Request clarification on appropriate interaction protocols. He wants to know if it's okay to talk to you, Zara told Tommy. Kale 99. Meet Tommy. Tommy, meet Kale 99. He communicates through electromagnetic pulses, so he can't talk the way we do. That's so cool. Tommy's older sister Emma chimed in. Can he understand us? He understands everything, Zara assured them. He just answers differently. Kale 99's field shimmered, and Zara's datapad displayed. Human juveniles appear to lack survival instincts. Human children are naturally curious, Zara explained to both her alien teammate and the growing crowd. They haven't learned to be afraid of new things yet. It's actually one of our species' greatest strengths. And greatest weaknesses, her mother added with the long-suffering tone of someone who'd raised a particularly adventurous child. Zara once tried to pet a bear cub. I was 5, Zara protested. And technically, it worked out fine. Because your father shot it with a tranquilizer gun, her mother replied dryly. And then we had to explain to a very angry mama bear why her baby was taking an unexpected nap. The crowd laughed, and Zara noticed her teammates relaxing slightly. Jix Prime had actually lowered his atmospheric processor, and Neera was accepting a cookie from Mrs. Chen with something approaching enthusiasm. So, old mister, Jenkins said, leaning on his cane and studying the aliens with the critical eye of someone who'd seen everything the 20th century had to offer. You kids here to study us like some kind of science project? Actually, Zara said, they're here to prove that Earth isn't the impossible death world everyone thinks it island. Death world? Mrs. Peterson laughed. Honey, this is Millbrook. The most exciting thing that happens here is when the Henderson boy gets his tractor stuck in the creek. That happened twice this month, Emma Peterson added helpfully. Which is exactly my point, Zara said, grinning at her teammates. Earth's reputation is based on incomplete information and a serious lack of context. They spent the rest of the afternoon in what Academy files would probably describe as intensive cultural reconnaissance, but what humans call hanging out. The aliens were introduced to the concepts of potluck dinners, community gossip, and the ancient human tradition of asking detailed questions about everything while simultaneously offering unsolicited advice. Jix Prime discovered that humans were fascinated by his six-armed physiology and kept asking if he could juggle. Neera found herself the center of attention among the local children, who were delighted by her gill slits and wanted to know if she could breathe underwater like a fish. Kale 99 became an instant hit with the town's electronics enthusiast when his electromagnetic field fixed old Mrs. Johnson's radio by accident. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, they gathered in the town square for what Mayor Davidson called an impromptu welcome feast, and everyone else called Tuesday dinner, but with more people. So, Zara said, settling down next to her teammates with a plate piled high with hometown cooking, still think Earth is trying to kill you? Neera looked around at the humans sharing food, the children playing tag between the tables, and Buster making rounds to collect dropped scraps from anyone willing to share. This is not what the reports described. The reports were written by people who didn't understand what they were seeing, Zara said. They saw a dog wanting to play and assumed it was a predator. They heard wolves singing and thought it was a threat. They encountered humans being friendly and interpreted it as territorial aggression. But the environmental dangers, Jix Prime protested weakly, the atmospheric pressure, the solar radiation, the gravitational stress, are exactly what I've been living with my entire Inyo life, Zara pointed out. Along with every other human on the planet. We're not superhuman. We're just adapted to our environment, the same way you're adapted to yours. Kale 99's electromagnetic field pulsed, and her datapad displayed, query. Why did previous cadets fail where we appear to be succeeding? Because, Zara said, taking a bite of her mother's famous potato salad. They came expecting a war zone and found a neighborhood barbecue instead. They were so busy looking for threats that they missed the actual point, which is? Earth isn't dangerous because it's trying to kill you, Zara explained. It's challenging because it requires you to understand context, to adapt, and to recognize that what looks scary from the outside might just be different from what you're used to. She gestured toward the crowd of humans and aliens mingling over dinner. Your academy wanted to prove that proper training could overcome Earth's challenges, but the real challenge was never surviving the environment. It was surviving first contact with a species that shows affection through physical contact, offers food to strangers, and keeps predators as pets because they're cute. And now? Neera asked. Now you go back and tell Commander Vex 9 that Earth isn't a death world, Zara said. It's just misunderstood. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could use a little more of what humans do best, which is making friends with things that should probably eat us. Zara grinned. It's worked out pretty well so far. As the evening wound down and her teammates prepared to file their reports, Zara looked around at her hometown, seeing it through alien eyes for the first time. It wasn't the safest place in the galaxy, or the most advanced, or the most logical, but it was home. And sometimes, that was the most dangerous thing of all. Not because it would kill you, but because it might just convince you to stay. 3 days later, Commander Vex 9 received 4 reports that fundamentally challenged everything the Galactic Academy thought it knew about Earth. And for the first time in his career, he filed them under Mission Successful instead of Psychological Trauma. Because sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is simply understand that different doesn't mean dangerous. It just means different. And maybe, in a galaxy full of beings trying to survive, that was exactly what everyone needed to learn.